For this section, we're going to be looking at the most popular French leader of all time, Napoleon Bonaparte. By the end of this, you'll be able to answer the question over here. What actions did Napoleon do in order to win the favor of the French people? Before we dive into that question, I want to come over here and quickly do an overview of what we've learned about so far. We've talked about a lot. We started off in 1789, where the Third Estate rises up and they demand that the First and Second Estate have their privileges abolished, that they would have equality in law and in how the government treats them, and that they would have liberty, the principles of the Enlightenment. So the Third Estate rises up and they form the National Assembly, and they created a Declaration of Rights of Man, Liberty, and Equality for all. But that doesn't last long, as the national name changes to the National Convention. When the National Convention kicks in, you had Robespierre and the Jacobins leading everything. Reign of Terror comes in and thousands of people are killed. When Robespierre is killed, what you have is a group of people, and this is new now, called the Directory. The Directory came in after the death of Robespierre. This government was not a very strong government. In fact, it was very weak, and it was a government that was basically run by 5 men. And the people of France are not happy with this Directory. They're not going around killing people, but France is struggling under the Directory. And they know that if they got the right person in power, the right group in power, the right people, that France could become a very powerful nation. And they're going to get their wish, at least for a little bit, of a powerful leader, and that powerful leader is going to be Napoleon Bonaparte. Now, Napoleon is an interesting person to study because, well, you can start from his background. Napoleon wasn't even born in France. Napoleon was born on a small island called Corsica. He ended up moving to France with his father, and interesting enough, his father actually fought the French. The French took over Corsica, side note, and he went to military school. The teacher said he was very smart, he was very ambitious, even though the people of France, his colleagues, students around him, would make fun of him because he was from Corsica. He wasn't French. He wasn't from a very wealthy family. Another characteristic of Napoleon, the one most common about Napoleon, is that he's very, very short. That Napoleon, when you compare to everyone else, this is not by proportion. Of France, Napoleon was much shorter. Napoleon was actually 5 feet 2 inches tall. The average person in France was 5 foot 6 inches tall. So he was short, but not as much as what people think. Anyway, so Napoleon, how does he gain power from the Directory? So if we go back up here, we talked about this. We talked about this. I briefly just told you the Directory was this group. By the way, this Directory it ends in Napoleon takes over in 1799. So we're talking about 10 years of all this stuff going on. So it's a lot of changes going on. Well, he ends up doing something called a coup d'etat. That is when you have something called a blow to the state. Here's Napoleon. Here's the Directory. Napoleon wins the favor of the French army because Napoleon was a general, and Napoleon did very well fighting for the French during the French Revolution. If you remember, during the French Revolution, Austria, Prussia, and England were at war with France. Napoleon did a very good job during the French Revolution in winning many, many battles. So the military liked him. They looked at him as a strong leader. So they said, we want Napoleon in power, not this Directory. So basically the big thing you need to know about this coup d'etat is the Directory is kicked out, Napoleon gains power. And so he becomes quickly, and the people vote for him to gain all the power of France. So he basically becomes a king in all but name. He's a dictator. He has all the power, all the control, and he ends up calling all the shots, and the people want to give him a chance. It's strange to understand, because during the French Revolution they wanted liberty and freedom and stuff like that, but they're looking at Napoleon to make them a strong nation. Okay, so we go quickly up to the essential question. Here it is. What actions did Napoleon do in order to win the favor of the French people? And here we go. These are the actions that he did. These are the things I expect you to know. 1, he brings back the church. It's called the Concordat. If you remember, during the Reign of Terror, Robespierre got rid of the Catholic Church. Napoleon brings it back, but he brings it back and he says, you can come back to Roman Catholic Church, but you're not going to be part of the government. The church and the government are going to be in 2 different areas of the lives of the people of France. This is something that you can relate to. It's kind of like a separation of church and state. Here you have the church here you have the government over here. Second thing he created was the Napoleonic Code. Now this is with the spirit of the French Revolution, that all men are equal under law. And this Napoleonic Code gave equality to all the people of France. The Third Estate was equal with the First Estate. First of all, the First and Second Estate, those nobles, he gets rid of all their privileges, like what the National Assembly did. So he's for equality, and everyone shares the same laws and justice. So a poor person was given a trial just like a rich person. Okay, that is Enlightenment ideas, and that's another reason why they like Napoleon. A third thing that he does is he gets France out of debt, and here you can see the Louisiana Purchase. The Louisiana Purchase. Did I spell that right? I think I did. The Louisiana Purchase. Here you can see the United States gets all of this land for, roughly speaking, $15 million, and that helps get France out of debt, and that helps the economy. He really does get the economy back on track. Remember this: economy. People are happy. Price of food goes down, and the people are okay with Napoleon calling all the shots, because he's creating parks, he's creating public schools for all people to have education. And so in 1804, you don't need to know the specific date when he becomes emperor, but when he becomes emperor in 1804, he actually crowns his own head, and you can see that right here. He takes the crown and he puts it on his head. This is an interesting person right here. That's the Pope. That's the leader of the Catholic Church. He wants to make it clear that no one is above him, not even the Pope. That he is the law, he is the revolution, he is the leader of France, and there's no one above him. This is in Notre Dame. It was a big event. He calls himself the Emperor. Here's his wife Josephine. Her job will be to have a son, so when Napoleon dies, his son will take over. She does not produce any children. He ends up divorcing her, even though he was madly in love with her. Well, Napoleon's a good general, and there's a lot of countries that are terrified of Napoleon making France a really strong nation. So what it ends up happening is Austria, Russia, and England all declare war on France. Napoleon is a genius when it comes to military, and luck is always on his side, and he ends up defeating Austria at the Battle of Austerlitz. Napoleon was greatly outnumbered. He ends up winning. This forces Austria and Russia to sign a peace treaty with Napoleon after this battle. There is a battle that he does lose. He wins many, many battles, but here is a battle he loses. It's a different type of battle. It's a naval battle. This is with Britain. Britain is surrounded by water, so Napoleon has to control the water. Right here, this is all water, in order to invade Britain. He plans on sending ships in to invade Great Britain, which he would have easily won if he was able to do that. However, this naval battle defeated much of the French ships, making it impossible for Napoleon to send troops to attack Britain. But Britain is safe from Napoleon's grasps. However, Austria and Russia were not, and they were forced to surrender. Napoleon puts a smackdown on all these countries. And what you end up seeing is, let's go back to this map over here. By the end of this war, where Austria and Russia and England declare war on France, Napoleon pretty much, well, Napoleon and France obviously controls their own country. They come into Spain, they control most of Spain, even though they do have difficulties, we'll talk about that. They control Italy, they control Austria, they control Prussia, and so pretty much all of this region here is controlled by Napoleon and his military. So Napoleon is becoming very strong. That is another reason why the French people love Napoleon, because they keep on winning battles. And Napoleon controls most of continental Europe. He also controls up in that region as well, Norway. So there you have it. Napoleon, a military genius, wins a lot of wars, wins a lot of battles, does Napoleonic Code, Louisiana Purchase, brings back religion, makes the French people happy. One more side thing, and then I'll end it. He does give the people no liberty, as in there's no freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom to criticize Napoleon. But the people are happy, so they don't mind that at this point. Those are the powerful achievements of Napoleon Bonaparte.